walking through this, I mean, we're going to spend a ton of time on them, right? Because they're just on fire, and they are now, essentially in a virtual tie with Houston. They're a half game back, tied in the win column, a game back in the loss column with Houston, who is fading and fading fast. Texas fading and fading fast, even faster. Yankees fading and fading. Like the teams in the American League, they're just not that good. And Detroit and Toronto are both decent teams. And the Yankees there's some decent teams, but they're not that good. And I am very curious to see what the Mariners look like this week as you do Baltimore and then the Mets and then the Phillies. Like Baltimore has given them some trouble, and then obviously the Mets and Phillies are two of the better teams in the National League this year. That's a good test for them. Right? On the road, all at once. That's a good little test. But in the American League, it's not, I don't think it's going to take 100 wins to get yourself a first round bye this year.
Nope. And Toronto's only 3 up on you. They're not 8 up on you.
No.
They're 3 up on you. You've just eaten that up with Houston in the last 7 to 9 days.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit is 2 up on you. So those 1 and 2 seeds, to me, that's how I'm looking at these standings now. I'm looking at Houston. You're right there with Houston. Houston will get healthier, Salk. Passon will tell you tomorrow when you have this take. He's going to tell you about the guys that are coming back.
You know what, though? I've heard those stories before.
And now
I've heard that story
now
before.
In that mix.
No, I've heard that before. Oh, this team's going to get healthier, and then when they come back, it just doesn't always work that way. Like sometimes the guys come back and they're not what they're supposed to be, and they're still dealing with something. Like I don't know. Those stories don't do it for me. Yeah, maybe that happens. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, terrified Houston's going to get their guys back and then this and that. Yeah, we'll see. Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Because the Mariners are going to get some guys back. Rayleigh's going to come back. Nice grand salami yesterday. Robles is going to be coming back.
Yep.
Bryce Miller's got, one more rehab start this week, hopefully?
Yeah, so you're getting some guys back. It's not Yordan Alvarez that you're getting back, but you're going to get some guys, and we'll talk through what that looks like at 8 o'clock. But I don't know. I look around and I see an American League landscape that is ripe for the taking, and the Mariners right now doing all they can to capitalize on it, which is great. I'm going to keep coming back to the trade deadline as the single most important event of this year. And I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again, and I'll try to be quick because I know it involves the word Boston, which makes half the people in town immediately change the station. So I apologize. Barf, Boston, barf, Red Sox, barf. But it's just my history. This is the first team I ever really covered, and it was the first championship team I ever covered, the 2007 Boston Red Sox. And they were an interesting team, not entirely like this one, although it did have some similarities. That team had some older players that were left over from the previous championship, the 04 championship. Manny, Ortiz, Kurt Schilling, Jason Varitek were all on that team. But they weren't toast, but they were not quite at the same level they had been. And they were very much powered by these younger guys like Pedroia, Kevin Youkilis, eventually Jacoby Ellsbury. And I do see some similarities there with this Mariner team and what they've gotten from some of the young guys that have been at the bottom of the lineup but have really, really contributed to what they're doing. And like the 2025 Mariners, that Red Sox team had kind of an iffy offseason. They went in a different way. They went big, but none of them worked. It was Julio Lugo and J.D. Drew and J.C. Romero and old Mariner Joel Pinheiro, who was supposed to be their closer. And, none of those really worked. Daisuke Matsuzaka was the other big one that worked that year. But, it was another team that was a little funky. They weren't put together necessarily the way you would want them to be. And they got to the deadline, and they were a few games up. They were not a bad team. They had sort of maybe overplayed what everybody thought they would be. And they got to the deadline, and they made a deal for the best closer, the best reliever available at the deadline. Eric Gagne. Remember Eric Gagne? When he was at his best in L.A. with the Dodgers, Eric Gagne was nasty.
He won a Cy Young, didn't he?
I think he did as a closer. That's insane.
Yeah.
That was not the version of Eric Gagne they traded for. This version of Eric Gagne had been hurt, had been building back up his value in Texas, and had done so. He got to the Red Sox, and for the last 2 months, he was atrocious. He was awful. He was terrible. He had an ERA over 6. He got left off one of the playoff rosters.
Where is this going? I'm
scared. He was terrible. Absolutely awful. But every player I talked to on that team, and I was not a big time reporter, but I had a couple people that I could talk to on the team. They all talked about how important that trade was to their confidence. And Brock, you used that word earlier, the confidence of this team. It's just like, yeah, we're good. We're good. Yeah. And it showed that group, especially those young players. But I shouldn't even just say that. It was a little bit of everybody. It showed that whole group that management believed in them, that they were serious about their chances of winning it all. And I look at what the Mariners have done since, acquiring those 3 guys in the last couple days before the deadline. And Josh Naylor's been awesome. The personality is awesome. The vibe that he gives off,
the production has been unheard of.
But the production has been tremendous.
Yep.
Mostly the stolen bases, but also everything else that he brings to the table.
3 bombs since he's been back.
He's good. He's just a really good hitter, and it's really fun to watch him. I really enjoy him. But Eugenio Suarez, I mean, objectively, he's been terrible.
Well, I think a WRC plus of -6 and a 38% strikeout percentage.
He's been awful.
Not ideal.
He's been awful. He has been awful since the Mariners traded for him, and it doesn't matter at all.
Yep.
Hasn't mattered at all. Gino's been bad. I don't know whether he got that. Remember, he got hit in the hand right before they traded for him. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's just a bad week, and he's maybe putting too much pressure on himself. I don't know. We've seen this before with Gino, the ups and the downs and everything else. I think he's going to have a big moment before it's all said and done, and I think we're going to see the better version of Eugenio Suarez. But they're playing a different and better brand of ball ever since he showed up, and that has happened without him doing a darn thing in the box. Yep. I think that's pretty incredible, the effect that trade, that belief had on the rest of the team to just get them going.
Salk, you're kind of our nailer in the show unit.
Thank you.
Yeah,
maybe that's why I like him so much.
Yeah, as I kind of look at the show unit, maybe I don't. Maybe that's where the analogy stops and starts. But you come back in and it just settles the rest of us down. You come back in and you got an edge, that you do about memorabilia and other stuff. You just kind of bring a little fire. You bring a little edge. You bring production, and you just kind of do it. Just settle the show feels. And all 4 of us would agree, it just feels so much more settled when we're all in the roles that we are built to be in. This Mariners team now with those additions, and I think why we dreamed of this a month before it happened. Can you imagine Jeff Passan? I mean, if you get Naylor, get both. You're in for a penny, be in for a pound. If you get an opportunity and Arizona's truly selling, can you imagine this lineup? Can you imagine this diamond that just felt a little bit, with some significant voids on the corners? Imagine them filled by those 2 personalities and production and age and experience and piece it. It would complete the lineup.
Yeah.
Everybody be in their right roles. And even if they're not humming, even if they're not necessarily at their peak performance, the fact everybody feels settled can go a long way for the rest of the group, and especially the guys at the bottom, to maybe pick their end of the thing up as well. It's been just a remarkable run. And it's baseball, and it will end. They're not going to win 9 out of 10, right? They're not going to. They won 7 in a row right here. There's going to be some rough bumps. Pitcher's going to give it up. Bullpen's going to give something up. They're going to get shut down by somebody. But overall, I think there's just a collective trust and belief in one another that, like your point, we're good, and we know it. That's a fun place to be.
Yeah, it is. I
kind of smells like some of those championship DNA kind of teams that we've been around enough to know whether it was your experience there, whether it was in the heyday of the team across the street, that you can just kind of smell it. And I do. I think of that Joe Buck chapter in his book. Remember when he came on with us, Salk, and after he'd written his book, and I loved his book and everything else, and he talked about right there before the Super Bowl. And I was listening on the other side to our sister station here in Denver. They got into some storytelling, and we're talking about that Super Bowl in New York, and they're like, man, it just never felt right. We were kind of banged up. Our guys were not focused. Guys were going downtown into Manhattan. And then, across the way, the Seahawks were just these ferocious pit bulls. I mean, you could just feel them foaming at the mouth. And Joe Buck said as much, that the most impressive production meeting he ever sat in was with the Legion of Boom the day before the game. And he called his wife and said, wow, this isn't going to be good. This is not going to be close between these 2. Could kind of read both teams, see both teams. And kind of, I don't know, 43 games to go here in the regular season. I'm not about to crown anybody yet.
No.
But you're starting to sense and smell a different kind of confidence in this club than we have sensed and smelled, I think, quite some time.
I think that's right. And that confidence, I think, comes from a few places. It comes from the focus we've talked about. It comes from looking around and seeing what's in their lineup. It comes from the veterans that are on this club, and there are a bunch of those guys, mixed with some of the young players, the Julios and Cole Youngs and Dominic Canzones. And, you know, Julio's obviously been in the league for a while. It depends kind of on your definition there of young player. But, you know, like that mix and looking around and seeing what you got and knowing that you've got some dudes who've been there and done it before, mixed, you know, Randy's been in the World Series and obviously, you know, well, all right, maybe that's about it. Not a ton of guys who've had that experience, but Josh Naylor's been in the postseason. Gino's been in the postseason. Even Julio and Cal had their one experience in the postseason. So, yeah, I just think there is some an ability to look around like, all right, we're a good team. The front office believed in us and added, you know, around the edges or maybe even more than that to what we needed. We've got a starting rotation that has not been as good as expected this year, but we know who those dudes are. And you got two horses in the back of your bullpen that are just ridiculous. I'm saying again, Matt Brash with 2 saves over the weekend. I understand why Munoz is the closer. He should be the closer. This is not an argument. I don't know how anybody hits the ball off Matt Brash ever. Every time he gives up a hit, I am in complete state of shock. His stuff is ridiculous. How does anybody hit that?
Yeah. You ever played, Salk, before Blue 88? My mind is going back as we're talking about this in the lineup. You ever played in a scramble with 4 sticks, and you were like the 5th?
Yes, I have actually once.
How fun is that?
Except you feel bad. You feel like you've got to contribute at some point.
Yeah, I played at Newcastle. Rick Neuheisel in his prime. I think he was like a 2. A guy named Bijal Shah, who may be listening right now. Bijal was a winemaker. He was a scratch that hit like 350-yard bombs. Okie Golf, actual Mr. Okie, who was unbelievably crispy and talented, and then the 4th guy I think had been on like the pro tour at some point, and I'm like, well, what am I doing here? I think I contributed 1 shot on an uphill where I sliced it so badly it hit off a rock.
Where are you going with this?
And bounced to 2 inches. I'm going with the fact that like every hole you just knew you're going to deliver, like we're going to birdie every hole, like we're going to win. Like we're good. And like that crew all knew it. They're all like scratch golfers. And honestly, for the first time in our tenure of doing this, it's just a way of putting a picture to what you have said repeatedly over the last 8 days since the trade deadline. This is the best Mariner lineup we've ever seen. That you and I doing this show have ever seen.
I think it's the best Mariner lineup anyone's ever seen. The numbers would bear that out.
Ooh.
Adjusted for park factor and league factor, this is the best Mariners lineup you've ever seen.
I got to take a look at that.
What you have to do is look at like combined OPS plus or WRC plus rather than just looking at the overall numbers, because the league does not hit the way the league did in 2001 or 1995 or 1998. Okay. When you adjust for the league that you're in and the ballpark that you play in, this is the best Mariner lineup of all time. You've never seen a better Mariner lineup than this.
Yeah, even 01, like if you're going to use this, like if we're going to play this exercise and just use this 2-week sample with the Mariners and then compare it to other teams, like Carlos Guillen in 01, 91 OPS plus, David Bell at third base, 90 OPS plus, Al Martin in left field, 90 OPS plus. That was the 01 team, starters.
This team has every single player hitting right now in their regular lineup with a WRC plus over 100. Like... This is the best Mariner lineup you've ever seen. Adjust it. Now, again, I get it. Like, obviously, other teams have scored more runs and have Hall of Famers and all of that. But just looking at the just raw numbers, this is the best you've ever seen. And you combine it with a pretty good pitching staff and a pretty good bullpen, and you end up with a team that I think is going to end up winning the West, and we'll see where it goes from there. Let's do some Blue 88.